as a county agriculture agent for Utah State University Extension Service for 9 years in Price, Utah. Marlon has been working for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service for about 12 years. First as an area agronomist in northern Utah and then state agronomist in Idaho. He currently works as the regional soil health specialist for Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. Marlon and his family live on a ranchette at Casper, Wyoming, where the family raises pasture, sheep, hogs, a few calves, and a large garden. Please help me welcome Marlon Winger.
Hey, this side of the room is lucky. Will you guys please stand up, just that side of the room, because I'm going to do a demonstration over here and you won't see it sitting down. So this is one of just an attention getter. In case Rob's starting to drift off a little bit, this will get you back going, Rob. So I love to do some soil health demonstrations to try to get your senses working so that you can see this. This is called the aggregate slate test, where you can put an aggregate dirt clod in the soil. And what happens here is the water is rushing into the pore space that Caitlin and Pete was talking about, right? Because they're dry, so the water's rushing in and putting great force, internal pressure force on the pore space. Pete talked a little bit about that. These are not fence line soils. These are Casper soils, low disturbance soil and a high disturbance soil. This one actually is a no-till alfalfa, no-till oat. The only place I could find a no-till drill in Casper. I found one guy that's done it. This is a pretty good crop rotation producer, but lots of tillage disturbance. And so you can see how the soil here is slaking. You know, when we go fishing, Kevin, when we go fishing, your granddaughters say, "Grandpa, will you put the worm on the hook because why?"
They don't want to touch it.
They don't want to touch it because it's slimy, gooey, right? So Pete, all these organisms produce these slimes and glues, these biobiotic glues. And that's what's holding these aggregates together because they want habitat. They have to have habitat. We know that if we lose the habitat for the elk or the deer or the sage grouse, the population starts declining quite rapidly, right? That's kind of cool as an agronomist. I never worried about the habitat of our soil microorganisms because I only cared about what was growing above ground. Now guys like Pete get me all excited, warm and fuzzy inside. Oh, that was heartburn. It's like, oh my gosh, those organisms need habitat. And as a farm manager, as a ranch manager, that's something we can control. Caitlin talked about dynamic soil properties. This is dynamic here. You can manage this. You can build soils. You can improve them. So quickly, me and Caitlin were up. We were the first ones at the hotel this morning. Building a soil aggregate. I'm talking, you gotta stand up here, because I'm handicapped. Hold your hand out. Hold it flat. That is the soil aggregate. That's a macro aggregate. What me and Caitlin built this morning was a micro aggregate with the big soil particles, sand, the next smaller particles, silt, and then little clay. It's kind of like sheets of paper. And we arranged them perfectly with every angle, right? Now, Pete talked a little bit about the biology. There's a handout, too. I've seen that a few of you guys got this one. Hand me this, that one right there. One of the funnest articles I've read, and Leanne photocopied quite a few of these. They're on our website at Idaho NRCS Soil Health if you didn't get it, but I like the title of this, because an agronomist always thought compaction was about still and tillage. Compaction is about biology. It's a good paper to read. Okay, Pete talked about several organisms. One of them is mycorrhizal fungus. Now you guys in the back, you can't see this because it's microscopic. This is what he's talking about, mycorrhizal fungus. You can't see it with the naked eye, but it goes way out into the plant soil ecosystem, around a couple tables and chairs, and where's my, I didn't tell you to sit down. out like this. So Pete said a little bit, he said, the mycorrhizal fungus, now close it, is like going to the doctor with an IV. That mycorrhizal fungus is attached right into the plant root. Kind of a symbiotic relationship. The plant feeding sugars, the fungus bringing in nutrients and water to the plant. Okay, now you can sit down for a minute. So we have our micro soil aggregate. Here's another example of mycorrhizal fungus. Pete, pretty close. Closest thing I can find in the toy store for $1. What? A little pink, yeah. It's girlish. I don't know, maybe there's sexes in them. Could be. We got mycorrhizal fungus that's kind of holding these soil particles together and releasing biotic glues. We got plant roots. Oh, now we really need Pete. We got to give Pete more time. Pete was describing a lot of the microorganisms, and now I'm going to just make a few words up, and Pete would know what these are. This is Bacillus. Here's Sharkacillus. Oh, God. Can you see this, Rob? Can you guys see this, you old guys? Love you old guys. I'm turning into one pretty quick. The soil ecosystem is very much like the plains of Africa. It's predator-prey relationships. One eats another. It's very, very predator. Here's a Jaguarosaurus. No, that's a dinosaur. What would we call this one, Pete? Protozoasaurus with a Omycete. Oh, there you go. Here's some funky stuff too. This is some. Now Pete talked a little bit about the nematodes. The nematodes get some of a bad rap, just like the hoodlums in Los Angeles, but there's still 90% good people in LA, right? So here's a bacteria-eating nematode. Can you see that? Look at how aggressive he is in there. Can you see that, Martha? I found an article one time, and it estimated that a male bacteria-eating nematode will eat 1.6 million bacteria cells a day. Now look at that, Oren. Now that's a predator. Now, we talked about some of the goos. You can buy this at the dollar store. It's called glomalin and polysaccharides. No, that's what I wrote on. These are some of the glues that the soil ecosystem is releasing. And this is how Mother Nature builds a soil aggregate. Now, Pete talked about this a little bit. When the plant runs out, when the plant is, oh, there's still some coming. When the plant runs out, dies, or is not photosynthesizing, they're not feeding the mycorrhizal fungus anymore. Now we start to understand why everybody's a little excited about cover crops, because we can keep the soil ecosystem being fed because photosynthesis is still feeding. If you don't have photosynthesis occurring, the mycorrhizal fungus is done for the day. Now, we got a beautiful, stable aggregate. The first time I saw this was in North Dakota soil. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. It'll last for 30 minutes and then dissolve. It held for 3 days in our workshop. And Kevin, I didn't have in my own, I couldn't explain it. I thought, man, why is it holding together so good? Because this is how soils function, people. And it's a dynamic property. And we as managers can influence this very rapidly. Now there's an NRCS poster out there that says, it takes 1,000 years to 500 years to make a little bit of soil. No, that's from the inherent properties. That's from geological soil. We can fix soil and we can make soil quite rapidly. Here's another thing. Look how these soils, they don't handle stress very well. We were talking earlier with Martha. Mother Nature doesn't like chronic stress that occurs all the time. She can handle acute stress quite well. but when she's in a chronic state, she's tough. Now, we got this beautiful aggregate. I grew up on a dairy farm. Men we tilled, Chad, we tilled the soil, because we thought the more you tilled it and the more you loosened it up, the better it was. So we worked hard, and if we had any extra time, we hit it with a Triple K harrow again, even though it had been harrowed 3 or 4 times. So we got our beautiful aggregate. Here comes Marlin on the offset disc. What's going to happen to my beautiful aggregate? Smash, bam, right? Wow, my aggregate's blown to pieces. That's what's happening right here. Is there any habitat, Pete, left for this? There's a tiny bit of habitat, but they're not very happy, are they? 30-mile-an-hour windstorm comes by. Wind erosion, sheet erosion, away we go. Caitlin talked about, in our arid west, we only got a little bit of topsoil, A horizon. You lose it, it's time to sell the farm. Now, Dr. Don Rakowski talks about, as soon as we open up the soil, we lose carbon as, now you guys in the back, you see that? Not pretty funny. Dr. Don Rakowski talks about losing carbon as carbon dioxide out of our soil ecosystem. Half of our organic matter we've lost in our agricultural soils in the US of A. Takes tons and tons more inorganic inputs to make that soil try to function when we lose it. Okay, let's go to the slides. Dan, you gotta keep me on track here a little bit. In one of our fact sheets, I love this because it stuck to me as a young farm boy, as a young farm man. If you're trying to make your soil healthier,